And Australia pulls into the win. You're gonna huck. It's a wide mark, but there's a pick. There's a call in the middle. Went a little bit stiffer. Still around 15 kilometers an hour. No throw. Rises up though nicely. And a big put to the end zone. And Switzerland starts strong. And hold. And cowbells in the background. And colors. I think I need to update these colors. And Switzerland in slightly off red. So maybe we can make that a little bit better. And that, number 50 to 64. And that would be Basil Führer to Simon Ittman. Australia now going to receive the disc. It's a good pull. Zone. And one player wandering. Oh, and just tried to keep it in. Home force called. This is the home side. Oh, and there's disc came out, no foul. Another home force, so the backhand force this time. And an interesting stack formation. A big slant is probably going to come across the front. Yes, it does. Piece, and then cleaned up. And Australia play the D, get the point, and it's ones. Zach Chodos to Louis Brohl. And Jack Lowell giving the name there. I probably slaughtered the pronunciation. Broad, yes. And interesting overall. Just gonna have a quick chat.
Ready?
And disc stop short. Zone as well. It looks to be a similar zone in the Australians. And now it's into man. Oh, and dropped, or just not dropped, but just slips out. Australia with a chance to break. Goes up line. Oh, and that's a spectacular return. He's saying he's in. Switzerland not arguing. And Australia energetically get the break. No? I'm going to try to get the numbers here for who scored. All right, we'll get him later. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're all good. You got to relax and enjoy the view from up here, Jimmy. Being joined by Jimmy Lippert for Sky Magazine. He's been writing some interesting articles here. We've been having some very good discussions. Outside of players, when you actually spend time chatting about Ultimate, you run into a number of different interesting topics, and our conversations range from actually the competition, but also to team organization, politics. There's a lot going on this game that most players aren't aware of that shape everything, and it's part of the broader picture. That pole lands out of bounds. They need to be. Oh, he wants to huck it. The options aren't there, but the in cuts are because poaches. The hammer goes across. Should be okay to get. Oh, and it's popped up high. And Australia going to get this. Cowbells sounding in support in the stands of Switzerland. And Switzerland playing slightly frantic at this time. And Australia with 3 going deep. And they break again. And just like that, Australia up 3-1. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie calls. And you know what needs to be done in that case. So timeout called. We're going to go look at Switzerland on this. This is their timeout. Jack Lilwall running out there as well. Don't know if they know he's Australian, but they now know the instant he's spoken. Yes, the hat gave him away.
There is on the mixed team that is for the sole purpose because he's from my comp team.
So Roland asking when are GB back on? I'm not quite sure, but the way they're playing, especially towards the end of the Japan game, was phenomenal. I think that's something that we'd like to see from them throughout a full game. Jimmy letting me know that the offense for GB was slow to start, but after that they really got into motion, and that game should have been a lot closer. And what we're seeing is Japan a lot of great speed to create the separation, but the top speed not the same. And pull comes in deep. Oh, that was close. Switzerland, high throw, and takes it high. And that, Switzerland 2, Australia 3. I'm bringing Jimmy in on commentary simply because he does a much better job of it than I do, and he's analyzing the play well.
Well, I don't know about that, Tushar, but for anyone watching at home, number 93 on Australia was the defender on the Switzerland player who scored there. And as soon as the pole went off, he was one of the first ones racing down there. He was front of the pack. As soon as the pole landed and there was that close defensive play there by the Australian defenders, he had over-pursued a little bit, and the Switzerland receiver recognized, started creeping deep, and as soon as he got up line to the handler, he just burst out into speed, and he has so much separation that it wasn't really close. We could hear calls from the Australian sideline saying, jump for it, try and go for it, but he really didn't have the space to try that just because of the separation the Switzerland cutter got. Pulls off. Australia receives. Switzerland with a zone look here. Australia working it between the handlers, getting a little bit upfield. Working the outside. Finally find a guy in the end zone and they score. The Australia score was number 7 to number 13. That's.
Here, if you want to do this, I'll do that.
That's Lockie Wise to Miles McCallum for Australia there to make it 5-2, 4-2. 4-2 lead for Australia over Switzerland. Not sure what Switzerland was doing in that zone. For a little bit, it looked like they were creating some havoc. The Australia handlers look a little wary there. They weren't sure where to put the disc, but they found a little space on the far side of the field up the sideline and eventually found a streaky man across the back of the end zone who kind of shook loose from the deep and able to get open and get the score. Here comes the Australia pole. Man defense from Australia. A little poaching off the handlers there. Ooh. Big collision as the Australian defender came up with a play to try and make a play. Backed off a little too late, it seems, and that was a pretty big collision. We could hear a crack up here, Tushar saying, and gotta hope that Switzerland player's okay as he's down. He's able to get back up. Always good to see that. Some good spirit from the Australian sideline. Everyone's clapping, asking the Switzerland players if he's going to be okay, what they think happened. Switzerland disc off the stoppage. Disc in for Switzerland. They work it back to the handler. And bad drop for Switzerland right on their end line. Gives it Australia disc. And finds an open man on the break side. That mark wasn't really consistent there for Switzerland off the turn. And man got wide open for the score.
4-31. Reece Stewart to Alex Ladamatos.
That's 5-2 Australia over Switzerland. That's number 4 to number 31.
Reece Stewart threw it to Alex Ladamatos.
Reece Stewart threw it to Alex Ladamatos. Apologies if I'm probably butchering that name. Unfortunate drop for Switzerland too. The wind kind of down for a little bit, but it looks like they'll have to work their offense going upwind here before they're going downwind. Got to wonder if Australia will come out with a zone. Might be the wise thing to do. Try and pressure the Swiss handlers into another drop or just unforced turnover. Here comes the big Australian pole. And it's going to hit and roll out. The Switzerland player did not touch it. Disc is in for Switzerland. Very deep look. It's a set play. Going to number 33. And it goes off him and a couple more guys into the Australian defender's hands right outside the end zone. Gets it back to a handler. Nice grab outside the end zone for Australia, and they punch it in for the score. That was number 93 with the throw. 93 to 30. That scoring play for Australia. Declan Frey with the throw and Jeremy Nixon with the grab. Declan Frey, apologies. Fancy. Tushar's got some fancy equipment up here on the scaffolding. Switzerland's got to regroup here. The set play looked like it was designed well, and their man was able to get open up underneath quite easily on his Australian defender, but unfortunately the disc popped up on him and landed right back in the Australian player's hands and gave Australia a very easy set to get in the end zone. And after a few throws, that's exactly what they did. It's now 6-2 Australia over Switzerland. Possible timeout here. Gotta believe it's by Switzerland.
Hey Reece, how do you go with more balls, mate? Not bad. Let's go.
Hey, Wilson. Thanks, bud.
Jimmy's off on important business related to some of the events that we witnessed here earlier.
It's a lovely sight.
And somehow my browser. Okay, we're good. It's back to being not in simplified Chinese. I would have had a little bit more difficult time browsing on that. The issues we're seeing in the game here is not
15.
is a little bit more of a frantic offense by Switzerland, but also just unlucky slips of the disc at inopportune times, and then Australia being very aggressive. Big pull and really fast coverage, as you can see. And zone was called, but it's not. As you can see, it's really clumped up in the middle. There, puck goes up. This will be an easy take for Australia. Tapped on. Oh, and almost grabbed by Switzerland. That was some height that we saw. And it goes back the other way. And one great D from the Swiss team as well. Moved quickly, not necessarily the best option. Puck going the other way, it's floating. And it's caught. And they're going to be asking what happened. And it looked to be in, and I think so as well. And Switzerland 6-3. And so we're looking for numbers here for Team Switzerland. We're looking to know who caught it. Maybe Jack will look up here. Hey, Jack. Jack.
33 to 60. 6-0.
So caught by Olivier, and thrown by number 33, Aaron Riedel. Switzerland, puck game, working on the second try and hanging. Comes down, and what's the call? Brick. Zone from Switzerland here. And they're going to man. Oh, there's a, who had him? That was a completely open player. Defensive error. And the Swiss player knows it, chastises himself. Australia extend their lead 7-3. And I'm wondering who scored that. Numbers, please.
Numbers 3-1.
And that on the Australia side, number 3 to number 1. So Lewis Broad with the catch, and number 3, Kyle O with the throw. I apologize for mispronunciations. I have a funny name as well.
Yeah, Reese, good pull.
Reese
Yeah, Kyle.
Stewart
Run,
with the
Kyle.
pull.
Yeah, Kyle. Yeah, Kyle.
It's going to get one pass off, and then there's options upfield that should have being taken right away. The Swiss have excellent teams within country. Flying Angels Bern comes to mind. Some of those players playing, of course, with UTI at Paganello. Jens Stouffer. Coming to mind. So Switzerland with some amazing players. And this team, if I might say, looks very young. Oh, and there's a hit. And Cupcake, that's number 85, Australia Cupcake, taking it, going back to 0. Cupcake and I have good conversations about spirit of the game. He's a younger player, so his perspectives are important. Disc called down from the sideline. It was really close to the grass, but the grass is short here. Close. Couldn't tell. The argument. Sorry, conversation. It's not an argument. It's warmed up today. I actually broke out in a sweat, which is surprising considering how cold it has been throughout the day. Tomorrow morning is also going to be cold. Join us at 9, first of our 5 games of the day. Long throw. And just a motley crew of Australians underneath. There was a collision further upfield. There's a call based off of that as well. There should have been a second Swiss player in there, so I can see why this would come back. It's going to be a good conversation in the middle as to what happened. So as I was saying, the Swiss team looking much younger than the Australian team. I think that might be part of a plan to develop their program further in the future, and giving these youngsters much needed experience. And population size does affect also how much experience you can have locally in the Switzerland, unfortunately, is perhaps a smaller country, but as I said before, some fantastic players. They're developing the next drop here. Confident set of fakes there and a pick called. And D over the top. That was a good poke. Center to Cupcake. Flick goes up. Few tall players underneath. Good positioning. And grabbed in the end zone from behind. That's a tough one. Thank you, Jack, for giving me the numbers. Number 4, Reese Stewart. To the tall man, Kyle Atkins, in the end zone. We've heard that name, Reese Stewart, quite a bit, and with good reason. Along with number 85, Tom Tullett. aka Cupcake. He has had the disc quite a bit, the two of them, as their two primary handlers. Australia preferring to play a 2-5 setup. And Jimmy on his way back up here as we continue our conversation. Oh yes, Australia now at 8-3. I'm a little bit tardy in updating the score. All right, Jimmy back up here. Interesting times. I'm sure I'll chat with him later. He has a good view of the field. The camera will soon have a good view of Jimmy. In fact, there he is. He says, "Hey world." So thank you for joining us.
Here we go, boys.
Coming back to the break mark. Australia with a chance to break for half. Sorry. The cut goes up. Oh, it popped up. And I think the wind is to blame for many of the problems that Switzerland is having. There's a hill over here and the wind can be a bit swirly coming off of it. And they just moved it. Try and get space. Take it with two hands confidently. And that brings to an end the first half. Number 42. Number 42, Phil White to Jeremy Nixon, number 30. Thank you, Jack, for those names. And that brings this first half to a close. Australia leading 9-3 for Switzerland. Quite a bit still left in this game. We'll catch up with you in the second half soon. And here we go, second half about to get underway with Switzerland pulling from the south end of the fields into a gentle breeze. And Australia leading 9-3. It's a zone, a bit of a wall, but it's a match zone now. Hammer. And caught. Australia extend the reel. Thanks to Jack, we now have some numbers. We got a little bit of horseplay over here up in the crow's nest, but Louis Broad to Loki Wise.
Remind me to bring that chocolate mug for dinner, so I have to buy chocolate mug. Well, actually, I won't get that. That was the major reason.
Impressive number here. The U.S., if you actually go and check out the Ulti-Apps schedule, ultiapps.com/WU23, you'll see that the U.S. has not lost a single game in any division. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's tough. Thinking about his feet and his position, and whether he was in or not, he was close. In zone coming out from Switzerland again. By the way, our score right now is 10-3. And almost. But deed in the end zone, Switzerland on the line. Good chance. And that's a good move. Score now 10-4. Gonna ask Tall Tony who the throwers there were, and who the catcher, who was caught by. Tony, do you have numbers? Catcher, thrower? Thank you.
50-14. 5-0. 14.
Thank you. Tony letting me know that Basil Führer throwing to Severin Ries.
Oh yes, Nick!
Big floaty pole. And it's not a zone, it's man. Easy upfield movement. Oh, and throws it straight into the defender, who had been lagging behind quite a ways. Hang on to it quite long. Goes deep and just a little bit too bladey, but it's being called stalled down or never in. So this is coming back. Hand blocked. When going for the swing, well read. He's probably going to look to Huck again. Oh, and a hammer that's not coming back in. Jimmy complaining that they had no cuts, and that was a problem, is that the in cuts that were happening, even though they were well covered on the ins, they continued. And that led to just stagnant offense. So a spin move, plenty of folks under the disc, but jump from inbounds to touch it there, so it will come back to the cone. Bit tougher field position for Switzerland. But there's no cuts. That was throw was cut off a little bit. Talking about no unders. Very deep, but now the deep is clogged from just a person hanging out there, but space created. It's sent, it's floating, it's popping, and Switzerland break. Tony, on the bottom left of your screen, going out to find out who caught, who threw. It's like number 70.
78 to 42.
It's like number 58.
78 to 42.
78, Gregor von Flew, to number 42, Maximilian Jensen, or depending where you're in Europe, Hansen, Janssen.
Yeah. Well, you had that. Yeah, the fucking shot was on.
And
It
Jimmy,
was a good throw. It would have been a goal.
frustrated a little bit by the offense. Yeah, and I agree with him, is that, as we said, there's clogging the lanes, standing in the lanes, and Switzerland will need to clean that up. You need to recognize when you're no longer open and the cut that you're making is bad, and how to clear. Cupcake, or Tom, as he's known rather plainly. Travel called. There is a player somewhere on the field that is poached. Overthrown, but blocked out. Looking for the deep. Ooh, not necessarily the best. He wanted to throw it and he got tunnel vision deep. The Next Gen crew enjoying a meal as they prepare to bring you the showcase game coming up next. And it may start. This game, though, is getting interesting. And that's what we like. Yes, Next Gen would prefer that game start on time, as were the tournament organizers and directors. But there's another call. And communication is so important. One of the things that I do is that I'm constantly announcing what's going on when I have the disc. I'm not just trying to move it quickly. It's because the reset is an important time. And this reset, taken quickly. And that's Cupcake. With the disc, you can see the frustration on the part of the Switz handler. He does need to calm down and focus on this game. Australia up 11-5. And I think the throw was probably from Reese. Yes, Reese Stewart most likely threw that. He's typically done that quite a bit, but this time to his other handling partner, Tom Tuttle. Standing pull. And a flood stack. Creates that first bit of movement. And there's a huck out of that stack. That, if he caught it, would be lovely, but just drifts. Now the problem with that cut is that the pull and the disc is coming directly behind him. It's hard to track it. Australia show they can put it to the other side, right about where Jimmy's head is. Thanks, Jimmy. Switzerland moving it upfield.
Back up. Yeah, beat him again. Keep on the wing. Come on.
Yes, Will.
And Hucked.
Great D, boys. Yes, Will. Great D, Will.
And a little bit low.
Work with your legs now.
Jimmy getting frustrated, but I should remind everyone again, this team does look a lot younger than the Australian team. They're building up to something. This might be good for experience. They might have taken their U19 team and decided to send them with a few add-ons. I'm sure Jimmy will let us know more after he researches it. A lot of clogging downfield. And wind picked up. And it's a try. Switzerland moving very quickly. Oh, and a good hammer on that instance. And 11-6. Australia leads. But Switzerland been having a good sequence the last few points. A lucky sequence in some cases. They've been making a lot of risks. You're not seeing it on camera, but we're watching the next gen crew about to shotgun Red Bulls. I don't understand why they're so tired. Jimmy calling for them to chug. I'd like to see them chug it before the pull. And the pull from Switzerland. It's going to land out of bounds. Come back to about there.
Let's go, boys.
You're going to have a very hyper camera crew for the next gen game that's coming up. Good break. Moving into space now. And the zone's collapsing around them, so they need to get it to the other side. And it's man. Pick. And a throwaway immediately. The break was a little bit behind the Australian player. And with the deep throw, there's plenty of chasers, but the Swiss throws don't float as much. That's a nice shot. And that throw from number 1, Lewis Broad, to 13, Miles McCallum. And Australia lead 12-6. And Switzerland bringing about, I'd say, 3 lines to the tournament. But 3 young lines. Several players clearly frustrated with themselves. Others showing great maturity, empowering through. Bouncing disc. And there's a player trapped with a zone. They needed more handlers back. And there you have them. Player going deep. Good sighting. It floats and hangs. There's position and height. Australia, the same pool as the Colombia Open. Lost 10-14 day before yesterday. Switzerland 17-14 over Ireland. Needs to reset. Doesn't have time. Now gets lucky move. Number 4 to number 2. Reese Stewart again to Jake, also known as Jake-Az. Thank you, Jack, for that information. So Australia losing 14-10 to Colombia. Switzerland over Ireland 17-14. Then their next game of the day, the US over Australia 17-6. Yesterday, Switzerland over Colombia 15-12. That's a bit of an upset. Australia with a tight match, 12-11 versus Italy. Then Germany 17-7 over Switzerland. Australia 17-12 over Australia. So we're having a bit of a mix-up in the pool. And earlier today, well, we're still waiting for a score update. Let me see if I have that available now. Yeah, we'll get the score update a little later. Possible. And the Swiss coach getting them hyped up a little bit. 13-3 the score for Australia. And the update from earlier today, Switzerland losing to Italy 15-8. A little bit topsy-turvy here. We're now watching Switzerland versus Austria. We'll have other members of that pool playing tomorrow. In fact, the Colombia versus Italy game should be an interesting, passionate one, to say the least. Thank you all to all those who have donated. I've been told that the donate button disappeared from our stream page. It'll be back all day tomorrow. Sometimes we just like to shoot and film and commentate. Pull lands inbounds. And the movement is very slow. The handler movement came first. Mids weren't cutting. From the top, still really no movement in the mids, but it's handler movement that's winning the day right now. It's into the middle, good movement. Over the top, this one is floating. Oh, indeed on the line. And that was a little bit of a riskier play. And Dennis Hotz has been moving the disc really well down the sideline. He was the shorter handler. I think number 91. It's not number 91 that I'm thinking about. Number 31, Alex. No, that's right. That's the other team. Nope, there is no number 31, so I was thinking of the right person. And Cupcake moving the disc through the middle. Just a bit of a huck motion. And Switzerland zone working well here. Floats it through the middle. The zone opening up now. Going to man. And Cupcake moving right in as Reese Stewart to Cupcake. And then to number 2. The tall man who is Jake Angelovich, or Angelovich. Jakaz. It's a good overall movement. Something really fun happening downfield, and I really like this, is one of a veteran Canadian player throwing the disc back and forth a little bit. And also, he does freestyle, so he's teaching a younger player who is just throwing out there by himself in the wind. They might also be doing a little game of flutter guts. Anyhow, it's a big party atmosphere here. Generally everywhere there's a beer tent. I suspect it'll fill up towards the end of this week, especially in the finals. Big pull. Is it going to stay in bounds is the question. It does. It IOs or helixes a few times. It was going out of bounds. There's pressure. But Switzerland wanting to move the disc quickly in motion. It's a good pass with a chaser. Hello to Rose. Enjoying our mobile stream. Pick called in the middle, caught. It's going to be moved back.
Get your book, Chuck! Get your book! Get your book, horse! Get your book, horse! Come on, boys! Yes,
And
yes,
a little bit of a bear hug there. Lots of pressure from the Australian side. And it's down. There's a lot of pressure, chasing pressure there from Australia. And really deep. Excellent accuracy. Oh, and the air bounce. Stutter stepped and intercepted by Switzerland. Good grab there. Needed to be. And thrower deep. Oh, he was so open. Goes hammer, but there's a lot of people there. Ooh, and there's a big collision and a foul called. And folks are saying they got to the disc. I saw several Swiss players go straight up and other players move into them. It wasn't straightforward. Australian player staring at me while he's receiving physio or massage therapy. I'm not sure which one it is. Australia playing well. Score actually 14. I apologize for not updating that. 14-6. There's going to be a bit of a discussion now. It's definitely not possession, but there was a foul, in my opinion, as an outside spectator. This should go back, and it will go back after discussion. I think that replay there is legitimate, but with a 0 stall count. But the granting, there were other Australian players that had a legitimate shot at it as well and did so without the contact. The hammer goes up again. Oh, and a spectacular layout grab. And Australia's not disputing it. 14-7. Jack? Jack.
16-33.
All right, that was number 16-33. We'll get those names for you right now. Number 33, the receiver, Aaron Rydell. Number 16, not on my roster here. Might have been 60, Olivier Golo. So busy day here, not as busy as some of our previous days. Only 3 games today, so rather relaxing. So thank you to David probably for asking. Any chance of coverage of GB Open against Austria on Thursday? Our schedule for tomorrow is now reasonably set. Oh, and 2 players crossing over. And unfortunately, there will not be the ability to have that coverage. Instead, we're going Japan versus France. That too is an important game. But we'd like to get France some coverage. A travel called. So tomorrow has been already set for that time slot. It's now 18:41 here in Toronto. Looking to reset. And that's the German. And he dishes and goes. A lot of players are underneath. And no call this time. But might have come down a little awkwardly on his shoulder. No call, but there is going to be an injury taken. Cupcake coming on.
Let's go, defense! Let's go, D! Quick, quick, quick! Let's go, boys! Let's go, defense! We need this back! We need it back! We need it back!
And the next gen folks with lots of energy now, having downed plenty of Red Bulls and had dinner. They're now ready, going to be showing you the third game of the day. Puck goes deep, but there was a poach. There's plenty of folks underneath. And no chance on that. 14-7 the score. Oh, that's a monster flick. Practically full field. And just falls out of reach. Pointing up. Australia prepare to play defense. It's been a long point. Sun starting to think about going down. It's rather nice sky as well. We'll show you the sky later, but for first, movement underneath for Switzerland, still not easy, but and so a lot of throws, short throws being forced. There is a call. And a floaty throw to the end zone. The Hanner stands there and watch, and that's a lucky.
One to 23, Louis Broad to Mark Delgado, 23.
Okay, number 1 to 23 for Australia. So the catch by Mark Delgado and the throw by Louis Broad. And Australia lead 15-7. The wind steady now. Being told by an app I have, so not by anyone in particular, that the wind right now is 10 kilometers an hour from the northwest. It's usually the direction that we have our weather from.
Ready?
And a standing pull. And lots of pressure on right away. A flood stack. No real options. Creating room for the handlers. And then wanting to go deep and getting players deep. In good positioning. Floaty throw taken high, and Switzerland make it 8.
60-33.
And the catch there by number 33. Actually, the first throw by Olivier Goller and Aaron Riddle on the end of it. So 15-8, Australia 2 points from game. And a warmer evening, so more spectators. Let's take a look at that sky. Gorgeous blue. And it's supposed to be a sunshiny day tomorrow. A deep pull, that's good, and the defensive pressure's on. And a puck again. And this time it's going to be boxed out. And Switzerland with a good chance now to break. We've seen great offensive pressure from Australia. Great deep pressure against the O. Switzerland setting up. And almost, but now they're going to the horizontal. For options, there's a call on the play. Talking about desk space and leaning in. Quick pivot. And it's a Blady. Like, oh, and a spectacular layout D catch. Oh, and foot blocks.
That's good, boys.
Looking at a vertical, but this is really messy. Lady over the top, Wynn's gonna catch it. Tapped in. Oh, he's calling for patience from the sideline. And rushed play to some level into the wind, which has picked up. It's getting back up to that 20-kilometer-an-hour level. It is steady. It's the same move that gets it to the same player, but there's space this time and no huck. Good speed. Up line, but nope. Gonna laser it. It's a small touch. Ooh. And these hucks. It's a little bit out of position. And there's good defensive pressure by both teams, and that's what's causing all these turnovers. Is there are no options to move it up line or down or across the field. And timeout going to be called.
Hey, once again.
Possibly. Oh no. Australia do want to finish this. And this one's floating again. Oh, and there's a foul called. And he was given a love tap in the back. A no-look pass attempted there. Dump as a handler came running through. And this line staying on for a while, and this game running on a lot longer than it should be. Or at least this point running on a lot longer than it should be. I don't think the Swiss would mind if this game went on right till the end, and they won. There's a call. And timeout called. Score 15-8. A lot of huck plays, a lot of good D. Maybe that's what's causing all these turns. Quite a few calls as well. Australian coach chatting with a player who's been hucking it quite a bit. Just being asked to calm down a little bit. Trying to move the disc. You know, a lot of his hucks are connecting. It's a continuation, and players just cutting willy-nilly in the end zone without setting up into a vertical, which is causing a lot of the issues.
I assume they were not all.
Hope you're enjoying at home. The crowd chanting on the Australian crowd cheering section. Have not heard. Oh, there was one. There was the bell, Swiss bell, cowbells.
At 7, over. Yeah, sure. So you don't want me to go?
Going to be coming in with a horizontal stack. Actually, it looks to be a little bit of an ISO stack. Nope, it is horizontal.
Come on, go away! Boss my boys! Boss my boys!
And Australia set up into a zone, which negates this horizontal stack unless a hammer goes over the top or a bladed throw goes over the close sideline. And it does not. Should mention, however, when I've thrown that, from time to time it has just resulted in a turnover. What is it about blades that make them hard to catch? Good cutting here in the cup to reset. And there's a call. I don't know about you, but I've played entire tournaments without making a single call. I've played games at Worlds without calls. Lady throw and just misses. It's a chat that Jimmy and I have been having, as well as a few players on many teams, about flow of a game. I'm not saying there's too many calls in this game. Seems to be pretty clean.
No, it wasn't on the schedule.
And a huck goes up and it'll be too deep. And Blady doesn't float. Calling for set. Because it'll be over here. The bottom right. Crowd chanting and counting. They're going to try moving it down the field bit by bit this time, and they can. Really holding back on the flick. The huck setters. And moved in.
9-0.
And now long point. Goes out with Australia, making it 16 to 8. Okay, we got the numbers. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing the names up here, so I'm relying upon the numbers. Ashlyn to Zach. Number 9 to 0. And there's a lot of zeros, so Zach on the receiving end of that. And number 9, Eshen. It sounded like Ashlyn, but Eshen. That's interesting. Wikrema to number 0, Zach Chodos. And a quick huddle here. Don't know what's happening. Is this a timeout? Not a timeout, I'm being told. So they're going to pick their line and go just directly hard out of this. It's now 1900. Immediately after this game will be the next gen stream. You can pop over there and enjoy their high quality stream with multiple camera angles, commentary, and a semblance of organization. Do hope you've enjoyed this stream and the full day. Tomorrow is going to be a long day for us. 5 games back to back to back to back to back. I think that's 5 backs. Maybe I should have done one less. There is no showcase game tomorrow, so we'll start broadcasting slightly before 9 o'clock local time, Eastern time, and finish probably around 9 p.m., so 2100, for a full 12-hour broadcast. Let's see if I survive that. You can tune in tomorrow to find out. Cupcake with a pole. Both sides being cheered on.
Go, Jakey!
68 the score.
Only side, Jakey!
Right hand, Kyle. Right hand, Kyle. Here, Kyle. Here, Kyle.
A lot of pressure. No real options downfield.
Now, Jake, left shoulder. Left shoulder, Jake.
Good handle, give and go to reset, keep the count.
Jump, man's around.
This one's floater, Cupcake comes down.
Right shoulder, Jake.
And that's the game. 17-8, very quickly, great cup. Number 11 catching Kyle Atkins from Cupcake. Tom Tuttle. Anyhow, Australia take that game 17-8. I hope you have enjoyed coverage. Finishing up our day of Open. We will start off tomorrow with Open and then move from there to one mixed crossover game, finishing up with Women's. So the middle game of the day, the third game, still a mystery game. Unknown what it'll be at this time. But the first two decided, and all events posted on Facebook. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Hope you tune in tomorrow. For I Am Ultimate, Tushar Singh signing off from WFDF Under-23 World Championships in Toronto, Canada, hosted by the Toronto Ultimate Club.
Tony, you want to talk to the U.S. captain?